Yeah.
I think the thing that I remember most from my childhood is the time that my parents gave to a variety of different organizations. So I remember my mom being involved in like PTA, book drive, blood drive, vacation Bible school, just all of the different things, and that it was a constant kind of almost a responsibility that you were supposed to give your time to these organizations. And I didn't quite understand or see the money aspect of it until later, but I remember all the time that was spent invested in those things.
Good. How about the third question? Philanthropic role models. Anybody that you saw doing things that you wanted to imitate yourself? Tina?
At my grandfather's funeral, there was my grandfather was mostly a farmer, but also was an electrician. He moved to the big city, 2,500 people, to work for Alcoa Aluminum, beach deal. He, at his funeral, there was a man there that sang, and this man cried all the way through the funeral, and no one in the family, we had no idea who he was. We had no idea why my grandmother asked this person to sing. And so afterwards, we asked her, and she said, well, he worked for your grandfather, and he didn't have very much money, which my grandfather didn't either. And he said, your grandfather paid for his son to go to college.
Wow.
We never told one.
Yeah.
We never knew.
Yeah.
We had no idea.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine that he did that so quietly and never shared it with anyone.
Yeah. And that's a real challenge. You think about that. Somebody doing something quietly, like you said, making a gift to the community foundation, but not for one of your organizations, but not allowing Tina to tell the organization until after the person died. People who do things very quietly. Chuck Feeney gave away, billions of dollars. The founder of duty-free shops, billions of dollars anonymously. And what it takes to do that, whether that, and that really checks your motivation when you do something like that without letting it be known that you've done it. And it's like Maimonides' code on giving. He says the highest form of giving is to make a gift that helps somebody move towards sustainability. It's the old Jewish code. The second highest is a gift, an anonymous gift freely given to an unknown recipient. Think about that. So, Pam?
The back row is well represented. My father was always involved in every community he ever lived in a big, impactful way. But he was a banker, so he said to me once, I don't know what you do or why anyone would find it valuable, because he couldn't believe anyone would give away assets. But he was a big community person, and he reminded me that during the Depression, and my grandmother, between FDR and the Pope, it's hard to say who she loved more. But my dad said they would move to save $1 a week in rent in the Depression. $1 a week. I think about that all the time. But my grandmother she had 3 pie plates and always fed, quote, 3 hobos on the back steps.
Wow.
Every night, because they always lived by the train. I said, you learned philanthropy from your mom. He didn't even recognize it for what it was, because food at that time.
Yeah, so philanthropy doesn't have to take just the form of cash, or in some places, it is not cash because that's all you have. There's a course on philanthropy and literature that we have at the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, and I've often taught a section called Philanthropy Among the Poor, using John Steinbeck and the Grapes of Wrath as one way to get at that. But it's this people who have very little who give away, just as Ma does in Grapes of Wrath. So let's move on to the ethical will, because Jim's letting me know I'm running out of time. So are you okay with this? I mean, asking somebody to do a philanthropic autobiography will be an interesting experience, probably, and a satisfying experience for the person across the table. So instead of starting out with the technical aspects, instead of starting off the money itself, starting out with where do you come at philanthropy? What do you know about philanthropy? What have you experienced yourself about philanthropy before you get you get to this topic. And we need to work at this and get ourselves comfortable with it. Try it on your coworkers. People enjoy doing this, actually. Did any of you mind doing this? No? So then there's the ethical will. The ethical will is more known, perhaps, than the philanthropic autobiography, and some cultures use the ethical will fairly extensively. We're used to thinking about wills as ways to take care of the assets in our life, the material assets in our life, our money, our home, our cars, special rings, that kind of thing, family heirlooms. The ethical will is about passing on the things that you believe deeply in life to the next generation. And that's how it starts. What do you want your children, your coworkers to remember about you? How do you want to pass on, and what do you want to leave behind when you leave this world? And then that leads you to thinking about how is it you can use some of your material assets to help do that, right? If I believe deeply in helping children who don't have the means to get themselves up to the first rung, then that might lead me to put an endowment in place to help fund programs to help those children reach the first rung. So the ethical will becomes a way in which you can get at people's understanding of how their assets might be used to do this. The next things, of course, are how does that get done? And that's where Pam and Scott and others can help you. Not Scott, right? Yeah. Scott? Okay, all right. Can help you think about those things. And then Tim and who else is coming with Tim? Is it just Tim?
No, Brian Yaley's going to be.
Okay, and Brian Yaley. They will help you into the real technicalities of how programs get put together like this. But we are talking now about the conversation that happens prior to the actual getting into the technicalities. So look at the ethical wills. What values have been most influential in your personal and professional life? What is it? What is it that you most deeply believe in? How do you want to be remembered by your colleagues, your donors, other donors, family? What legacy do you wish to leave behind? And the word legacy there then becomes one of the ways in which you begin to think about establishing a planned gift or leaving some of your assets in an endowment of some kind. What values of yours do you think will be particularly useful to the next generation? And those sometimes cause people to set up programs of certain types that might be of interest or might extend those values. And these things then lead people to make gifts that they find satisfying. To set up planned gifts with the Community Foundation that benefit your organization, because your organization, is one of those organizations that can help affect the values that the person believes in. Okay? So, just look at those questions and begin to answer those questions as well. This is, I usually do this in 3 hours, but we're going to get through this in an hour. So look at all those questions and then think about how you can prepare yourself to have a conversation with somebody else. So it's practice with colleagues, practice with the people at the Community Foundation, but then begin practicing this with some of your donors. If you invited a group of your donors into a room to do this, they would have a good time with it, I guarantee you. Okay? Or the Community Foundation could sponsor a group of people to come together and talk about this. Now I'm sure you have tools, right? I've seen some of the tools that community foundations have that are actually even more, they're more specific and have more questions than what I've laid out here this morning. But this is a good way to get at it. And what I'm doing here is essentially is the basis for those tools that community foundations use to help donors think about this.